Hello and welcome to today's video. Today an interesting one. It's a pen review, but it's this pen. This is the Lamy Balloon fountain pen. I've reviewed a lot of Lamy over the years. I've shown a heck of a lot of Lamy. I really like Lamy, and I like so many of my Lamy pens. This one is an interesting one. Firstly, the balloon model is not available outside. I think it's only a few places in Europe where this pen was available as a fountain pen. The balloon model here in Australia, at least, is a rollable. Now, I don't own one, but I'll put up a little picture here as you can get a sense of it. It's modeled much closer to the Lamy Safari than this is. Like there are elements of this pen that are very Safari-esque. But the general styling of the rollable balloon in Australia is very much like a Lamy Safari. It doesn't use the standard Lamy rollable refill. It's got its own specific refill, and it's not my favorite. But there are elements of that pen model that I love, and I'm going to cover some of that in this review. So today we are talking about the balloon fountain pen. I bought this online from a retailer in Europe. And it cost €19, which is really, really decent. The rollable here in Australia is about 30 Australian dollars. So the fountain pen version would realistically be about 40. So 19's not too bad, particularly if you want to chuck it in on an order with, other products like inks and things like that that you can't sort of readily get. Anyway, let's talk about the parts and features of the balloon fountain pen as I have it here. So it's got a rounded end, and the clip is this plastic flimsy clip that is made in, I don't know how well this is going to show, but like it's sort of built in to the cap and the cap liner in there. And this transparent blue plastic material really does show everything. So you see everything through there. And it's not the most attractive element, especially like being secured through the back of the cap like that. Now, this isn't designed to be, a fancy pen. It's a student pen, really, I suppose. And it's, it looks a bit more, I think this looks cheaper than, a standard Safari. The cap is cylindrical and runs to a little step down there. And then onto the barrel, it starts round and then turns into those facets like we expect from the Lamy Safari. It's got the ink window there, and those two facets run flat and then curved around the other corners until we get to the end where we get the little, Germany, like made in Germany sort of logo thing in there, which is in a sort of a frosted plastic. And then we get the Lamy logo. Now on the balloon here in Australia, the logo is just, like embossed, if you will, like as opposed to sort of actually printed on. And I think the printed on, while it matches the white of the clip and balances that out, I think it's not my favorite look, shall we say. It is a snap cap. And it caps like a regular Lamy Safari. It's got that same triangular grip or that rounded base with the two finger facets there. I'm not sure how well they'll show up. And then you get like little step down and the traditional Lamy nib and feed. I have it here in a fine. It is a cartridge converter pen, and it's not provided with a converter, which has been a problem for me with Lamy from day one. I'm just using Lamy Black in here in a standard cartridge, and when that's emptied, I will refill that with whatever ink I decide to put in here again. Now, obviously, Lamy uses proprietary cartridges and converter. There are a couple of other brands, I think maybe Parker, that people say can fit and things like that. But, Lamy cartridges are widely available, converters are widely available, but you can't just use your standard international in there, unfortunately. It's all injection molded. There's little signs of that, but at €19, you're not expecting the same sort of quality control or finishing that you would on a plus €100 pen. And that's the basics of the Lamy Balloon fountain pen. There are elements I like. There are elements I don't like. We'll come back to those later. For the size comparison today, I've simply got it alongside a Lamy Safari. You can see how on the Safari, the name is sort of like embossed in it as opposed to printed on. The balloon is a little bit longer, a lot of that length coming in the balloon, if you will, of the cap there, the dome on the end. I prefer the Safari style clip, which is also the style of clip we get on the rollable version of the balloon here in Australia. But I really do like the transparent material of the balloon. Uncapped, you can see how similar these pen bodies are. Like really, they're pretty identical. In fact, the Lamy Safari cap will actually fit on the balloon there. So, you know, I'll come back to this point at the end of the video, but I'd really love to see more color options for transparent safaris. Just going to say that. Posted there, the balloon is once again a little bit longer, just by the dome on the end, really. So the specific dimensions of the balloon fountain pen from Lamy, 143 millimeters when capped. It's 129 when it's uncapped and 171 when it's posted. It's nice and lightweight, so posting it doesn't affect the balance so much. The grip section is tricky to measure properly because of those facets, but it's like between 10 and 11 millimeters depending on sort of where you hold it, and around the cap is about 14 millimeters. I said it's pretty lightweight. The entire pen weighs 15.5 grams, 10 in the body and 5.5 in the cap. So you don't feel necessarily a whole lot of extra weight. I can write with this comfortably posted or unposted. Now, over the years, I've written with a great number of these Lamy nibs, you know, on the Safaris, All-Stars, Studios, you name it. But we'll do a quick writing sample here anyway. So this is the Lamy balloon fountain pen. This is a steel Lamy fine nib, and the ink is Lamy black. Okay, so some of you might be starting to realize an issue with this particular nib, and it's things like that stroke there and a little bit there, where while it's not drying out, it's not skipping, it just tends to like not write as consistently as some other Lamy nibs. Now, Lamy nibs, generally speaking, will perform really, really well. They are, you know, smooth enough, they are generally sort of wet enough. You rarely have things like hard starts, things like that. I know that, like, this is obviously I've written with literally well over 100 Lamy nibs, is easily like probably multiple hundreds, you know, as well as, you know, reviewing pens and using them when I've done work in like stationery shops and things. Part of my job has been testing the Lamys, it's been fixing nibs, all those kinds of things. So I'm very familiar with these Lamy nibs. And this one sits on the, like, if I was going to put it into a scale of, you know, like the best to the worst, this would sit somewhere in that, just under that lower portion into the worst. It's definitely not the worst I've used, but it's nowhere near the best I've used. Luckily, obviously, these Lamy nibs are so interchangeable. If I desired so much, I could just get a new one and replace it, which would be fun. Just to do some quick writing. Like, you can hear it's a little scratchy. It's not the smoothest nib either, but we are getting those little bits where it's just not, particularly on those right to left strokes, where it's just kind of thinning out a little bit. In terms of wetness standard, it's okay. Reverse writing is actually really nice. Not a flex nib, so please don't push these Lamy nibs. They're not designed for that. You know, whether it was a right-handed writer, not my best writing, but it's okay. So look, I think really this is in that sort of 40 to 50 percentile, if you will. Not the best I've used. These are issues I could probably easily tune out, you know, make it a little bit wetter, make it a little bit smoother, those kinds of things. But you're not buying a pen like this to invest time in the nib. You're buying a pen like this primarily as a quick writer, maybe for a student, those kinds of things. And unfortunately, this will be different to the nib you get, to the nib another person gets. I just happen to get one that writes a little bit like this. So what are my pros and cons for the Lamy balloon fountain pen? Okay, cons. First thing I want to say, proprietary cartridge converter is going to be an issue for some people. It doesn't come with a converter. Yes, yes, and yes. Totally understand all of that. My two actual issues with this pen. One is this clip. Firstly, it's quite flimsy. Like I could easily break that. It's just plastic. No issue in breaking that. I also don't like this design. I do really prefer the design of the Safari clip. I think it's a bit more rugged, but it would take away from the lines of the balloon model. It's just not ideal. The balloon rollerball design being close to the Safari does make it a little bit more appealing in my eye. The other issue I have, as you saw, is that this particular nib is a little bit scratchy and not the wettest I've ever used from Lamy. So whether I decide to do a little bit of work or I just replace this nib, I'm not sure yet. But if you were buying this pen for a student, it's not going to inspire them to write if it comes with a nib like that. So you can't dictate that from a buyer, but just know if your nib does write like this, maybe you take it back, maybe you purchase a different nib or a broader nib or something. There are options. But what are the pros? Well, we'll start with that. The nib is interchangeable. You can buy them. In Australia, the nibs cost about $30, which is more than the pen, but you can get extra fine, medium, broad, 1.1, 1.5, 1.9 stub nibs. You can get a left-handed nib. Sometimes you can even get like some of those like Chinese calligraphy nibs, although I think they're being phased out. There's an A nib for beginners. There's a range of nibs available. You could even buy, for 200 Australian dollars, a 14-karat gold nib and put it on this pen if you wanted to. The nib that goes on the Emporium or the Dialogue 3 or CC is the same nib that will go on this pen. Or the same fit, just obviously different properties. So yes, nibs are interchangeable. I kind of like the fact that it feels like a Safari in the hand. I find the Safari model quite comfortable to use. I've used a lot of them. As I said, I carry them regularly. It's a good standard everyday pen, so I like that fact. I really like this transparent blue material. I'm a big fan of the Vista, the all transparent Lamy Safari. I would love them to make a range of fountain pen Safaris in translucent colors. I know we've all kind of been asking for a blue one for a long time. How nice would that be? Like, it is such a simple, clean thing. They've obviously got the means to be able to. They've made one here. They've got the balloon model of the standard, rollerball, which on the surface looks a lot like a Safari. So, they've obviously got the ability to. I'd love to see them sort of do that, especially seeing as though things like this balloon model are not widely available outside of certain countries in Europe, like Germany. So let's get that happening. I think it'd be great. I think we've had a lot of Safaris in the last few years. There's been a lot of matte versions, which I'm a big fan of, or pastel colors, things like that. We've had a couple of multicolor versions sort of happening now. Let's get a couple of transparent versions. The balloon in Australia comes in pink, green, and this blue. They would be great options. I'd also love to see maybe, a purple or even an amber. I think that would be great fun. And why not go something like, a sort of a darker green? Like the green that's available is very much like a Kelly green. Let's go for something, or an apple green. Let's go for something that's like foresty green and transparent. I think that would be really cool. But this is the balloon model, not the Safari. I'm just saying, if they can do this, they can do Safaris. And I would really like that. I also think the price point for this at €19 is a really nice option. It's got enough whimsy in it for it to be attractive to children. But if you were just a good, fountain pen user who wanted something easy and affordable, like in your hand, that's a pretty nice looking pen and it's a very comfortable pen to write with. So €19, particularly if you can add it onto another delivery from outside of Europe, not a bad deal at all. So this was my review of the balloon fountain pen from Lamy. I hope you found this video interesting and useful. Please like and subscribe, hit the notifications button, all that kind of stuff. If you've got products you think I should be looking at, or if there's a way you would like to support the channel, I would love to hear from you. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you soon.